I work late shifts, so I'm used to driving home in the middle of the night. Most of the time, the roads are empty and I actually enjoy the peace and quiet. But one night, that quiet turned into the most terrifying experience of my life. It was around 2:30 a.m., and I was heading home on a mostly deserted highway. My gas tank was running low, so I decided to stop at the next station. I pulled into a small 24-hour gas station, the kind that barely has any lights, with one lone attendant behind the counter. There were no other cars at the pumps, just an old beat-up sedan parked near the convenience store entrance. I didn't think much of it until I saw someone sitting inside the sedan just staring at me. I tried to ignore it and started pumping my gas. But as I did, I felt uneasy. I glanced back at the sedan. The person was still watching me. And then, as if that wasn't creepy enough, the driver's side door opened. A man stepped out. Tall, thin, dressed in dark clothes. He started walking toward me. Not fast, not slow, just casual, like he had all the time in the world. My stomach dropped. I pretended not to notice and kept my hand near the gas nozzle, heart pounding. "Hey man," he called out. His voice was too friendly. "Got a couple bucks?" I shook my head. "Sorry, I don't carry cash." He kept coming. "Come on, man. Just need a little something." I glanced toward the convenience store. The attendant was inside, but he wasn't paying attention. The guy stepped closer, now just a few feet away. That's when I saw the handle of a knife sticking out of his pocket. I froze. "Look," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "I don't have anything. I'm just trying to get home." He smiled, not a normal smile, the kind that made my blood turn to ice. "That's all right," he said, tilting his head. "Maybe I'll check your car." That was it. I didn't wait. I ripped the gas nozzle out, threw it back onto the pump, and jumped into my car. As soon as I slammed the door, he lunged. I locked it just in time. He yanked on the handle. Hard. Then he banged on my window. "Hey, come on, man. Don't be like that," he shouted, grinning like it was all a joke. I threw the car into drive and floored it out of the station, my tires screeching against the pavement. As I sped away, I saw him in my rearview mirror. He was just standing there. Still smiling, I didn't stop driving until I was miles away. When I finally pulled over in a well-lit area, my hands were shaking. I checked the news the next day, looking for reports of anything similar. Nothing. It was like it had never happened. I don't know if that guy had done this before, or if I was just at the wrong place at the wrong time. But I do know one thing. I never stop at empty gas stations anymore. And to the man with the knife, let's not meet again. I used to work night shifts, which meant I was always driving home in the dark. Most of the time, it was uneventful. Just me, a quiet road, and a podcast to keep me awake. But one night, I had an experience that still makes my skin crawl. It was around 2 a.m., and I was on a mostly empty highway. There were a few cars scattered in the distance, but nothing close by. I was cruising in the right lane, just trying to get home. That's when I noticed headlights in my rearview mirror. A car was approaching from behind, fast. At first I assumed it was just someone in a hurry, but when they got closer, they suddenly slowed down. I watched as they pulled up behind me, keeping just enough distance that I couldn't see their face or the car's details. I figured they were waiting for a chance to pass me, so I stayed in my lane. But instead of switching lanes, they matched my speed. I changed lanes, thinking maybe I was in their way. They followed. I sped up. They sped up. I slowed down. They slowed down. At this point, every hair on my body was standing on end. They weren't just following me, they were toying with me. I told myself not to panic. Maybe it was just some idiot messing around. Maybe it was nothing. Then, they did something that made my stomach drop. They turned off their headlights. Now the highway was completely dark, except for my own headlights cutting through the night. I couldn't see them anymore, but I knew they were still there. I could feel it. My heart started racing. I couldn't stop. I couldn't pull over. I didn't want to give them a chance to do whatever it was they were planning. I kept driving, white-knuckling the steering wheel, trying to stay calm. Then, out of nowhere, their headlights flashed back on. Now, they were right up on my bumper. I was done. I slammed my foot on the gas, pushing my car way past the speed limit. If they were going to mess with me, they'd have to risk getting pulled over too. For a few agonizing seconds, they kept up. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. Then just as suddenly as they had appeared, they swerved onto an exit ramp and disappeared. No turn signal, no slowing down, just gone. I didn't stop driving until I got home. I sat in my driveway for what felt like forever, just gripping the wheel, trying to process what had happened. I checked the local news the next day, but there was nothing. No reports of suspicious drivers, no accidents, nothing. I have no idea who was behind that wheel or what they wanted. And I never want to find out. To the driver who thought it was fun to play games on a dark highway, let's not meet. I was driving home late one night after visiting my parents. It was a long 3-hour drive, mostly through rural highways and empty back roads. By the time I was about an hour away from home, my gas light came on. I sighed, knowing I'd have to stop at the next available gas station, no matter how sketchy it was. A few miles later, I spotted a small, old gas station on the side of the highway. One of those places with dim lighting, outdated pumps, and no other cars around, except for one. A beat-up pickup truck was parked near the convenience store entrance. Its engine was off, but there was someone inside. A middle-aged man with a scruffy beard sat behind the wheel, not moving. His headlights were off, and his face was just barely visible in the glow of the store lights. I tried not to think too much about it. Maybe he was waiting for someone. Maybe he was just resting. I pulled up to the pump, got out, and started filling my tank. The night was silent, except for the faint buzzing of the old fluorescent lights above me. Then, I felt it. That prickling feeling on the back of my neck. I glanced toward the truck. The man was staring at me. Not just a casual glance. His eyes were locked on me, completely still, unblinking. I looked away, trying to shake the unease creeping up my spine. I told myself I was overreacting, but I couldn't ignore the feeling that something was wrong. I quickly finished filling my tank, got back into my car, and pulled out of the station. I checked my mirrors, half expecting the truck to still be sitting there. But it wasn't. The truck had turned on its headlights. And as I merged back onto the highway, it pulled out after me. At first, I told myself it was just a coincidence. We were on a long, empty stretch of highway. Of course, we'd be heading in the same direction. But after 10 minutes of driving, I realized something chilling. No matter how fast or slow I went, he stayed right behind me. I changed lanes, he changed lanes. I sped up, he sped up. At this point, my pulse was pounding. I didn't know if this was just some weird guy messing around, or if I had a real problem on my hands. I decided to test it. I put on my turn signal and took the next exit, pretending like I was stopping at another gas station. The truck followed. Now my stomach was in knots. I merged back onto the highway, trying to lose him, but he stuck with me. He never got too close, but he never let more than a few car lengths separate us. This went on for another 15 minutes. I had to think fast. If I kept going straight home, he'd know where I lived. That wasn't an option. So I did the only thing I could think of. I floored it. I slammed my foot on the gas, pushing my car well past the speed limit. 85, 90, 95. The truck sped up to match me, but I had a plan. I knew there was a fork in the highway coming up, with 2 different ramps leading to opposite directions. I stayed in the left lane until the last possible second. Then I yanked my wheel right and took the exit without signaling. For a split second, I watched in my mirror as the truck continued straight. Then, its brake lights lit up. I knew he was about to try and follow me. I didn't give him the chance. I took the first turn I saw, speeding through a dark back road, then another, zigzagging through a neighborhood until I was completely off the main roads. I pulled into a hotel parking lot, killed my engine, and waited. Nothing. I sat there for a long time, heart pounding, watching the road like my life depended on it. After about 20 minutes, I was convinced he was gone. I took the long way home that night, constantly checking my mirrors, but the truck never reappeared. The next day, I checked the local news and police reports, looking for any mention of similar incidents. Nothing. It was like it had never happened. But I know what I saw. To this day, I never stop at empty gas stations late at night. I do a lot of long-distance driving for work, which means I'm used to being on the road late at night. I've had my fair share of weird encounters, strange people at gas stations, sketchy motels, but nothing like this. This happened about a year ago. I was driving through a mostly rural area trying to make it to my hotel for the night. It was around 1 a.m., and the highway was completely empty. Just me, my headlights, and miles of darkness. I was cruising along, listening to music, when I saw something up ahead on the shoulder. At first, I thought it was a deer, or maybe a broken-down car. But as I got closer, I realized it was a man. He was standing right next to the guardrail, facing the road, just beyond the glow of my high beams. No car nearby, no bag, no reason to be out there in the middle of nowhere. I slowed down slightly. Not enough to stop, just enough to get a better look. He looked disheveled, dirty clothes, unkempt hair, and an odd stance. His arms hung limply at his sides, and his head was tilted forward slightly, like he was looking at the ground. As I passed, he did something that made my stomach drop. He suddenly lunged toward my car. Not in a help me kind of way. It was fast and aggressive. I swerved into the next lane just in time, my heart pounding in my chest. In my rearview mirror, I saw him still standing there, watching me. I kept driving. My brain was racing. Was he trying to flag me down? Or was it something worse? A few miles later, I saw a gas station up ahead. I pulled in, still shaken, and parked near the pumps. I didn't even get out. I just sat there, breathing heavily, trying to calm down. That's when a car pulled in next to me. An older guy in his 50s stepped out and tapped on my window. "Hey, you okay?" he asked. I saw what happened back there. I rolled the window down just enough to talk. "Yeah, some guy on the side of the road just ran at my car." The man nodded, his expression serious. "That guy's been out there for a few nights now." My stomach twisted. "I'm a trucker," he continued. "I saw him last night standing in the exact same spot. Tried to do the same thing to me, jumped toward my truck at the last second." I stared at him, my heart pounding. "You think he needs help?" The guy shook his head. "I don't know, but I sure as hell ain't stopping to find out." I thanked him, and, after a few minutes, got back on the highway, making sure to stay in the farthest lane from the shoulder. As I passed the stretch of road where I'd seen the man, I couldn't see him anymore. But that didn't make me feel any better. To the guy trying to get cars to stop in the middle of nowhere, let's not meet. A few months ago, I was driving home from a late-night work shift. It was a little past 1:30 a.m., and I was taking a shortcut through the quieter part of town, a stretch of road that ran through a mostly industrial area. At that hour, it was completely deserted. No traffic, no pedestrians, just me and the glow of my headlights cutting through the darkness. I had driven this way plenty of times before, so I wasn't really thinking about much, until I saw something in the middle of the road. At first, I thought it was an animal, but as I got closer, I realized it was a shopping cart, flipped on its side, blocking both lanes. It was just sitting there. I slowed down, my pulse immediately picking up. Something felt off. There weren't any stores around here, no gas stations, no reason for a shopping cart to just be in the road. I came to a stop a few feet away, debating what to do. I could probably get out and move it, but something about the whole thing made my gut scream, "Don't." I was about to put my car in reverse when I caught movement in my side mirror. Two men, dressed in dark clothes, stepped out from behind a dumpster on the side of the road. My stomach dropped. They were walking toward my car fast. I didn't think. I didn't hesitate. I slammed my car into reverse and hit the gas, tires screeching against the pavement as I backed up as fast as I could. In my rearview mirror, I saw the men start running. I kept going. I didn't care if I hit something. I just needed to get far enough away to turn around. After about 100 feet, I spotted an opening in the road, just enough space to make a U-turn. I cut the wheel hard, my car fishtailing slightly before I straightened out. I didn't even check to see if they were still coming. I just gunned it in the opposite direction. I didn't stop driving until I got to a busier part of town. Even then, I kept looking over my shoulder, checking my mirrors, making sure I wasn't being followed. I reported what I saw to the police, but of course when they got there, no cart, no guys. For weeks after, I kept checking the news, looking for any reports of similar incidents in my town. But there was nothing. No reports, no warnings, no police statements. Then one night, I found something. I started searching for robberies involving objects in the road, and that's when I saw the stories. It had happened before. Different towns, different highways, same setup. Something in the road to make a driver stop. People waiting nearby. Only in some of those stories, the driver didn't get away. Reading them made my skin crawl. I don't know what those guys were planning, and I don't want to. All I know is that I listen to my gut every single time now. And to the people waiting behind that cart, let's not meet.